Queen Lyra's crest flared involuntarily as the human's boot crossed the obsidian threshold, the ceremonial binding seal pulsing gold at his wrist, a temporary mark of her ratification, etched by her own decree moments before. She stood motionless atop the gate dais, her 4 primary wings folded in rigid formality, overlooking the palace forecourt where her daughter's shuttle still hummed with residual heat. Princess Lyra flanked her to the right, the air's plumage subdued after the long void passage, her gaze fixed on the newcomer with a mix of duty and unease. "Commander Elias Reed," Lyra intoned, her voice carrying the Empire's melodic timbre, household attaché by Treaty Clause 9.4. "He steps as witness to our pact." The human inclined his head. Not a bow, but precise, measured respect that irked Lyra's advisors clustered below. Tall for his kind, broad-shouldered in the stark black and silver envoy garb, Reed's dark eyes swept the assembly without flinching. High house delegates in their house colors, honor guards with vibrolances humming, and the hovering scrut scans initiating their vetting protocols at her earlier command. No tremor in his stance, no wide-eyed awe at the seraphine spires piercing the twin moon's glow, just calm readiness, as if gates like this were commonplace. Lyra's mandibles clicked softly, a private signal to her chief advisor, Lord Varen of House Kethar. Observe him closely, she had ordered upon Illyra's arrival scant hours ago, when the princess's shuttle had kissed the landing pad and triggered the succession council by ancient right. The girl's return from the frontier worlds had reignited the High House's ambitions, whispers of Illyra's tainted off-world ways already coiling through the court. But the treaty with the human concordance, forged to stave off the rival Vorak dominion's encroachments, demanded this. A liaison bound to the royal household, a living symbol of alliance. "Vetting complete, Sovereign," Varen reported now, his tablet chiming as the scans retracted. "Biometrics, nominal. No weapons beyond ceremonial blade. Neural patterns, unremarkable for a soft skin. Cultural databases confirm. Standard primate envoy training. Unremarkable." Lyra suppressed a ripple of disdain along her secondary wings. Humans. Short-lived, oxygen-dependent curiosities from a backwater fringe world. Their fleets had surprised the galaxy with brute persistence in the last border skirmishes, but what value one lone attaché? Still, the treaty's clause was ironclad. Lyra's household required this equal partner for public validation lest the concordance withdraw their sensor arrays and joint patrols. "Accept his presence at your side for ceremonies, daughter," Lyra commanded, her voice projecting imperial steel across the forecourt. "Protocol demands it. State necessity overrides sentiment." Lyra's crest dipped in acknowledgement, though her tail flicked. A tell of inner conflict, Lyra noted with a strategist's precision. The princess had changed out there, her plumage etched with faint void scars, her strategies laced with alien pragmatism. "As you decree, Mother." "The houses will see the treaty's strength embodied." Murmurs swelled from the delegates then, House Thaler's contingent pushing forward under Lady Moraine's lead. The faction's matriarch, her obsidian feathers gleaming with ritual oils, thrust a crystal-etched protest scroll toward the dais. "Sovereign Lyra, this violates the Third Edict of Purity. Ancient law forbids interspecies consorts within the royal eyrie. A human tainting Illyra's household invites ritual fracture. Our legions falter without legitimacy." The forecourt tensed, guards' lances humming higher, Illyra's hand twitching toward her sidearm. Lyra have felt a political lattice shift. Thalor and their allies held key fleet commands, their protest a veiled bid to force a succession vote now, while Illyra's void-hardened loyalties consolidated. External rivals watched from shadowed orbitals, no doubt. The Empire teetered on this fragile thread. She extended one primary claw, silencing the assembly with a gesture that had quelled rebellions. "The edict speaks of consorts in blood bond. This is liaison, ceremonial, temporary, ratified under my seal." Her gaze locked on Reed, appraising. He stood unmoving, hands clasped behind, reading the exchange without translation aid. Adapting to the seraphine cant already? Advisor Varen's tablet flickered. The human's neural scans spiked faintly, pattern matching their speech rhythms on the fly. Curious, but irrelevant. With a sweep of her wing, Lyra activated the binding field. Golden filaments wove from the gate's arch, coiling about Reed's wrist and ankle. Light as mist, unyielding as star steel. "Enter, Commander Reed." You are bound to Illyra's household until council dissolves the seal. Serve the protocol, transgress, and the Empire's justice is swift. He nodded once, precisely. Honored, sovereign. I serve the Alliance. His voice, steady, resonant through the translator orb hovering at his collar, carried no bravado, only professional intent. As he stepped fully inside, the gate's wards hummed approval, and the assembly parted like plasma before a prow. Lyra descended the dais steps, her retinue falling in, Illyra at her side. Up close, the human smelled of clean alloy and faint ozone, none of the cloying scents her kind favored. His eyes met hers briefly, not challenging, but assessing, as if mapping alliances in her advisor's stances, the flicker of Marine's suppressed crest quiver. Controlled observation, she reminded Varen silently via neural link, every word, every gesture. If he proves weakness, the houses will devour this treaty, and Illyra's claim. They processed toward the inner area, Reed matching their stride without fatigue, though the binding tugged at lesser envoys. Illyra glanced at him sidelong. The ceremonies begin at dawnrise. Public rite of unity. Bear it well. Understood, Princess. I've reviewed the protocols. His tone held quiet confidence, fingers flexing subtly. Testing the seal's give, or merely human habit? Lady Myrene shadowed them, her protest scroll clutched like a talon. Sovereign, the houses convene fully at eve fall. Thalor demands veto. Lyra's mandibles parted in a regal smile, sharp as a lance tip. Let them demand. The treaty holds empires together. This human is its chain. Fragile, perhaps, but tested in voids we have not braved alone. As the palace doors irised open to the grand hall, Reed's gaze lifted to the vaulted crystal dome, refracting the moons into a cascade of light. No gasp, no stumble, just a faint nod, as if committing the architecture to memory alongside escape vectors and delegation fault lines. Lyra's crest twitched again. Unremarkable, Varen had said, yet something in his unflagging poise whispered otherwise. In the hall's heart, Illyra turned to him. Your quarters adjoin mine. Rest. The court watches. He inclined his head. Rest is for after duty, Princess. How may I assist the household now? Illyra hesitated, then gestured to a side console flickering with incoming fleet dispatches. Vorak probes detected at the rim. Pattern the anomalies. Our analysts flag routine, but Reed approached without pause, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface, eyes narrowing as he cross-referenced human concordance feeds via his wrist link. Lines bloomed. Trajectories linking to Thalor's outlier patrols, not routine, faint to test response. Suggest repositioning your 7th wing. Flank vector, minimal exposure. Varen's plumage ruffled in surprise. How? Your scans lack our depth resonance. Patterns the same across domains. Reed replied evenly. No trace of smugness. Humans drill it in sims. Your 7th covers it clean. Lyra watched, her mind turning. A simple dispatch, yet he'd juggled alien glyphs, treaty subtexts, and now this. Without complaint, without pause, the advisors exchanged glances, Myrene's tail stilled. Illyra's eyes sharpened with reluctant approval. Observation continues, Lyra thought, strength unyielding in her core, but perhaps this chain holds firmer than foreseen. The human had entered her palace. The game deepened. Queen Lyra's claws clicked sharply against the obsidian table as High Lord Vesper of House Thalor rose, his iridescent wings flickering with restrained agitation. The treaty's ambiguities demand arbitration, Sovereign. Rival houses must voice objections before any liaison binds itself to the princess's household. We schedule it for dawn cycle. Murmurs rippled through the council chamber, a vaulted sanctum where bioluminescent vines pulsed along gilded walls, casting shadows that danced like conspiring specters. Lyra's gaze swept the assembled high houses, Maris, Thalor, Vesper, all eyeing the human who stood motionless at the chamber's edge, his posture impeccable, hands clasped behind his back. Elias Reed, the treaty's unwelcome gift, now threading her palace like a vein of unfamiliar ore. She had allowed his entry, but this arbitration would fracture the fragile accord before it could mend her daughter's return. Agreed, Lyra intoned, her voice a silken blade, 8 eyes narrowing on the human. Tradition permitted such challenges. Denying them invited whispers of weakness. Yet something in Reed's steady stare, unblinking, appraising, stirred the first crack in her composure. He was no ornament. Dawn cycle. Let the houses prepare their barbs. Lord Kalis of House Maris leaned forward, his mandibles clicking approval. But before he could elaborate, Reed stepped forward, not with bombast but precision, producing a slim data slate from his tunic. Sovereign, honored council, he said, his translated voice calm, carrying the faint harmonic burr of human inflections through the palace's lingual field. Under Subclause 47.2 of the Galactic Accord Protocol, ratified in your Empire's accession 2 cycles past, I file a binding motion for deferral. Vesper's wings stilled mid-flutter. Lyrha's primary eyes locked onto the slate as Reed projected its contents, a holographic scroll unfurling in the air, text scrolling in flawless Seraphine script interspersed with treaty cross-references. The arbitration interprets treaty language, but household integration precedes it per procedural hierarchy. Deferral allows verification of my designation without prejudice to objections. Vote required. Simple council majority. Kalis hissed, a low vibration rattling goblets. Human, you presume our protocols? This clause binds only provisional envoys, not consorts. Reed inclined his head, unperturbed. With respect, Lord Maris. Subclause 47.2 applies to all treaty-designated liaisons until formal ratification. Your archives confirm it. Precedent from the Voron Incursion Treaty, Cycle 192. I cross-checked en route. His fingers danced across the slate, pulling up the cited record, timestamps glowing authentic. Multitasking effortlessly, he addressed Vesper directly. High Lord, your house sponsored that accession. Shall I recite the verbatim override? Vesper's crest flattened, a rare sign of disequilibrium among the elder lords. Lyrha felt a flicker of surprise coil in her thorax. Humans were endurance curiosities, pack-loyal but procedurally blunt. This? Pattern recognition woven into galactic law like a native. She had dismissed Reed as Elira's burden, a human curiosity for her daughter's off-world tales. Now, he juggled their arcane bureaucracy as if born to it. Vote, Lyrha commanded, masking her intrigue behind regal poise. The council murmured assent. 7-4 deferral, no immediate vote. Arbitration postponed. Reed's motion held, keeping him woven into the court without a single blade drawn. Kalis's mandibles ground audibly. A delay, Sovereign? This elevates the outsider. Lyra rose, her robes whispering like wind through spires. Elevation, verification. Open the palace archives to Envoy Reed. Full access overriding seclusion protocols. Gasps rippled. Archives were sacred, bloodlines etched in crystal vaults. Not for alien eyes. Her override tested him. Prove your record, human, or crumble under scrutiny. Dawn cycle extends to this review. Let him unearth his own truths. Reed bowed, precise. Gratitude, Sovereign. I will not abuse the privilege. As guards escorted him toward the vaulted depths, Lyrha caught Illyra's gaze from the dais edge. Her daughter returned from exile's edge, wings scarred from off-world skirmishes, nodded subtly. Household arrangements loomed. Treaty mandated integration. Princess, Lyrha said, voice pitched for the record. Procedural necessity permits a private audience with the envoy. Discuss the household. Ensure harmony. Illyra's eyes gleamed, a mix of relief and wariness. As you decree, mother. She swept from the dais, Reed falling in step behind her guards. The pair vanishing into the palace's labyrinthine corridors. Lyre turned back to the council, propriety intact, but the air hummed thicker now. House Maris seethed. Kalis rose again, bolder. Sovereign, if this human proves unfit, and he will, House Maris offers an alternate. Envoy Terran Voss, human diplomat of impeccable lineage, trained in our courts. No special operations rabble, a consort worthy of the heir. Escalation. Maris's ploy unveiled, supplant Reed, fracture the treaty's specific designation, install their puppet. Whispers swelled. Thaler neutral, Vesper calculating. Lyra's claws flexed beneath the table. Rivals circled her throne. Illyra's return amplifying succession fractures. Except Voss and Maris gained leverage. Reject, and accusations of favoritism flew. Her voice cut the din like crystal shattering. House Maris presumes much. Envoy Reed stands designated by treaty signatories. No substitution without my explicit seal. She signaled the chamber's security nexus. A holographic ward blooming. Palace security. Formalized Commander Reed's escort protocol. Augmented guard rotation. Access keyed to Princess household. Any alternate approaches without my writ-faced attention. Guards saluted in unison, their carapaces gleaming as protocols locked into the palace grid. Kalis recoiled, wings pinning tight. Detention? For a fellow human offer? Protocol. Lyra echoed Reed's own word, a subtle barb that drew stifled chuckles from Vesper's flank. The treaty binds us. Test it at your peril, Lord Maris. The council dispersed amid tense vibrations, high houses retreating to their spires. Lyrha lingered, summoning her seneschal via neural link. Monitor the archives. Report Reed's queries verbatim. Alone now, she paced to the viewport overlooking the palace's grand atrium, where Reed and Lyra had passed moments prior. Private audience. Procedural necessity, yes, but curiosity gnawed. What household arrangements would a human propose to her ritual-bound daughter? Far below, in the archive vaults, Elias Reed moved with quiet efficiency under guard escort. Crystal spires hummed as he interfaced his slate, pulling lineage records, treaty annotations. Not frantic, but methodical, endurance in focus, adapting to Seraphine data flows that baffled even their scholars. One guard, a young drone named Siler, watched with twitching antennae. Humans tire after light cycles of such work, he muttered to his partner. Reed glanced up, a faint smile creasing his features. We manage. No boast. Just fact. Siler's partner chittered. Manage? You've cited precedents we archive keepers debate for spans. Patterns connect across domains, Reed replied simply, linking a human diplomatic corps manual to their Voran precedent. The slate chimed approval. They stared, dismissive neutrality cracking into tentative awe. This human read their empire's bones like kin. Upstairs, Elira led Reed to her household wing, a chamber of woven silk vines and starlit orreries. Guards posted outside. She sealed the door. Commander, Mother's Gambit tests you. Archives first, then us. Reed nodded, setting his slate aside. Fair play. Household first. Rotations for shared duties. Mutual veto on sensitive matters. Builds trust without overreach. His eyes met hers, reading the subtle droop in her secondary wings. Fatigue from court glare. You've borne off-world scars. I respect that strength. Elira paused, mandibles parting slightly. Humans missed such cues. He did not. Emotional subtext grasped intuitively. You see much for an envoy. Teamwork demands it. He sketched a simple org chart on Air Holo, integrating Seraphine rituals with human contingency planning. Creative fusion. No lecture. Elira's crest lifted. Mutual learning sparked. Lyra watched via discrete feed, propriety straining. The human endured scrutiny, multitasked law and rapport, adapted without strain. Maris's ploy rebounded, council eyes now fixed on Reed's procedural anchor. He remained at the court's heart, scrutiny his shield. Yet as Elira laughed, a rare, genuine trill, at his quip on mandible politics, Lyra felt the game's depth plumb new layers. This human was no mere envoy. And her throne, it hungered for such allies. In the archives, Reed unearthed a forgotten addendum bolstering his motion, guards now aiding his search with quiet eagerness. Word spread, subtle vibrations through palace comms. House Maris schemed in shadows. Queen Lyrha's claws tightened on the armrest of her throne as Lord Vesper of House Maris unfurled a shimmering data scroll, his voice slicing through the council chamber like a vibroblade. The addendum unearthed by the human, Commander Reed, they call him, is a relic, Majesty, twisted to suit alien whims. We propose Clause 17. No non-Seraphine shall hold strategic posts within palace grids or military relays. Civil oversight must remain ours, lest off-world intrigue erode our sovereignty. Murmurs rippled across the vaulted hall, wings rustling in agitation among the high houses. Lyrha's gaze swept the assembly, Princess Elira at her right, mandibles set in quiet resolve. The empty liaison dais where Elias Reed should have stood had protocol allowed. The archive discovery had buzzed through comms like a hive alert, guards whispering of the human's relentless dig through forgotten vaults. Hope flickered then, a rare warmth amid the scheming shadows of Maris. But Vesper's motion struck now. Emergency debate ignited. Civil-military fractures laid bare. "Lord Vesper," Lyrha intoned, her voice a regal cascade, laced with the pheromonal edge of command. "The treaty binds us. Reed's find reaffirms human integration, not subversion. Debate the clause, but know the Empire's grid hums with vulnerabilities we ignore at peril." Vesper's compound eyes gleamed. "Precisely, Majesty. Vulnerabilities exploited by off-world hands. Our military purity safeguards the throne." Ilra leaned forward, her wings half unfurling. "Father's era welcomes such alliances. Reed proves competence. Proves infiltration." Vesper snapped, scrolls projecting hollow maps of contested sectors. The chamber erupted, houses dividing, Maris allies decrying human novelty, traditionalists invoking ritual oaths. Lyrha silenced them with a raised talon, her mind racing through stratagems. The debate dragged an hour's verbal melee, but beneath it pulsed the archive's echo, Reed's patient sifting yielding what Seraphine archivists had overlooked for cycles. Yet Vesper's claws gnawed at the treaty's core. A calm chime pierced the tension. Lyra accepted the link, Technician Kale's voice urgent. "Majesty, outer grid breach confirmed. Human liaison Reed has isolated a tampered node. Report," she commanded, muting the council's drone. Kale's feed bloomed. Elias Reed crouched amid the palace's undergrid conduits, sleeves rolled to elbows, sweat beading on his bare human skin despite the chill. Seraphine techs clustered, mandibles clicking in awe as he traced faint anomaly patterns on his portable scanner. Human make, jury-rigged to interface with their crystalline relays, one hand splicing a diagnostic probe, the other gesturing to flickering readouts. Tamper trace at junction 47B. Not random wear, deliberate overload sequence, masked as surge decay. Your standard sweeps miss the fractal echo. Humans pattern match across noise like this in field ops. A tech, young and wide-eyed, extended a manipulator arm. "Impossible. Our protocols assume clean inputs," Reed replied, humble patience threading his tone. He guided the arm, their claws working in tandem as he explained the patch logic, adapting human redundancy codes to Seraphine harmonics. No fatigue in his posture after hours from archives to grid, just focused endurance, juggling schematics, team cues and breach forensics without pause. The node stabilized, logs spilling sabotage signatures, House Maris encryption ghosts. Kale's voice trembled. "Exposed, Majesty. Sabotage. Internal." Lyra severed the link, the chamber falling silent under her stare. Vesper shifted, wings folding defensively. "Coincidence? No," she declared, rising, her presence a gravitational force. "Sabotage breaches our heart. I order a formal audit of palace security, under Commander Reed's oversight. His expertise pierces what ours glosses." Gasps echoed. Illyra's eyes met hers, a spark of pride. Vesper protested, but Lyra's pheromones quelled him. Strength unyielding, propriety cracking only enough to admit necessity. The human skill saves us from shadows. Debate ends, clause tabled. As council dispersed, Lyrha summoned Reed via comm. His face appeared, dirt-streaked but composed. "Majesty. Your vigilance honors the treaty," she said, the words tasting of unaccustomed equity. "Lead the audit fully, and I authorize you command of a watch detachment, 10 guards, assigned to Alira's household. Protect what Maris endangers." Reed nodded, no triumph in his eyes, just professional resolve. "Understood. We'll rotate shifts, cross-train on your protocols. Mutual watch." She cut the link, a quiet respect coiling in her core. The human worked as if such feats were mere duty, blind to their rarity, endurance weaving through crisis without boast. Dawn broke with chaos at the gates. Lyra strode to the balcony overlook, Elira at her side, as shouts swelled from the plaza. Anonymous leaflets fluttered like toxic spores. Holo projections branding Reed a flesh spy grid poisoner, twisting the breach into human guilt. Protests swelled, merchants, low-house folk, Maris agitators chanting for purity, barricades forming. Maris whispers spread fast. Illyra murmured, wings taut. Lyra's mandibles clenched. Drones captured faces, Coordinated, not spontaneous. Sanction temporary curfews, she ordered her aides. Voice iron. Seal districts disperse with minimal force. And grant Reed expanded authority. Full investigation of this propaganda source. Trace the print nests. Audit disseminators. Elira glanced sidelong. Trusting him so deeply, mother? Lirha met her daughter's gaze, the admission of fracture in her regal shell. He sees patterns we segment, adapts without ritual's crutch. The sabotage proves it. Maris tampered to frame him, and he unraveled it while we debated clauses. A pause, personal warmth threading the political weave. We learn from this human, Elira, as he does from us. Below, guards enforced curfew, but Reed's detachment moved among them. Human it led, Seraphine flanks sinking to his cues. Protesters parted uneasily, whispers of the grid save rippling counter to the lies. One guard, a veteran from the archives aide, clapped Reed's shoulder in cross-species camaraderie, a small bridge amid the storm. Lirha watched, optimism grounding her resolve. House Maris schemed deeper, but the palace grid hummed secure, the human's quiet competence a bulwark. For the first time the throne felt steadied not by tradition alone, but by alliance earned in shadows unveiled. Lord Vesper Maris rose from his high seat in the grand hall, his iridescent scales flaring under the vaulted crystal lights, voice slicing through the banquet's murmur like a vibro-knife. High Sovereign, the returned heir openly embraces alien rights, human customs that erode our sacred bloodlines. Witness her household's deference to this off-worlder, a breach demanding formal inquiry before the full conclave. Lirha's mandibles clicked once, a fraction too sharply, as eyes across the long tables, nobles of houses Taylor, Virus and lesser kin, swiveled toward Princess Elira. At her side, the queen's inner guards tensed behind the dais, but she raised a primary claw, silencing the rising susurrus. Contempt for Maris's theater coiled in her gut. He played the traditionalist to mask his house's grasping at the succession void. Yet the accusation landed amid crystal goblets and spiced nectar, the air thick with the scent of roasted void beast forcing her hand. Lord Maris, she intoned, voice a regal cascade. Such claims merit evidence, not echoes. The treaty binds us. Elira upholds it as duty demands. Elira leaned forward, her youthful spines erect, but before she could retort, Elias Reed, seated unobtrusively at the princess's flank, human frame clad in adapted court silks, shifted with predatory calm. Lyre noted it peripherally. His eyes, those flat mammalian pools, scanning the hall's shadowed alcoves, fingers loose on his thigh. No panic, no deference beyond protocol. The human's presence, once an unwelcome treaty tether, now hummed like a tuned shield generator. Maris pressed, gesturing to a holographic projection flickering to life above his table, snippets of Elira's household adopting human meal protocols, shared laughter across species lines, gasps rippled. House Virus lords nodded gravely. Inquiry now, Sovereign, or risk the Empire's purity. The hall erupted in debate, voices layering like storm winds, when chaos cracked the air. A side archway's drape billowed, too violently, and a cloaked figure lunged from the shadows, plasma stiletto gleaming toward Elira's back. Lyre surged half upright, her personal blade half drawn, but Elias was already moving. He exploded from his seat, chair toppling silently, body intercepting the assailant mid-stride. One arm hooked the attacker's wrist in a twist that wrenched the stiletto free, the other drove an elbow into the intruder's throat scales with surgical force. The figure gagged, staggering, but Elias didn't stop. Pivot, scan, shove. In the same fluid breath he scanned the hall's exits, barking to Elira in crisp Seraphine. Princess, East Corridor, now, guards, flank left. He herded her back even as he pinned the assailant face down, knee grinding into the spasming neck ridge, freeing hand signaling Lyra's nearest guards to converge. The banquet froze, then boiled, nobles scrambling, trays overturning in clangs of precious metal. Lyra's hearts pounded twin rhythms, fury at the breach, astonishment at the human's seamlessness. He'd read the attack's vector before her own eyes registered it fully, secured Elira's path while neutralizing the threat, all without a wasted motion. Her guards swarmed in, binding the assailant in restraint fields, but Elias yielded only after confirming Elira's safety, rising with controlled breath, no sweat beading his skin. Secure the hall, Lirha commanded, voice thunder amid the din, slamming her claw on the dais. Lord Maris, Your inquiry dissolves. This assailant, detained for my interrogation. Commander Reed's account stands as primary witness. Maris paled beneath his scales, subsiding as guards hauled the struggling form away. Illyra touched Elias's arm briefly, spines relaxing, a flicker of gratitude Lair harked keenly. In the antechamber stark glow hours later, Lyra, Chief Strategos Kale Virus, and a cadre of security adepts. Elias stood at parade rest, summoned by her direct missive, his report already relayed via secure link, precise, devoid of flourish. The Queen paced the obsidian floor, holographic threat maps pulsing around them. The blade bears House Maris sigils masked, but deeper currents stir. Commander, your tactical read? Elias inclined his head, unassuming. The attack was staged for maximum disruption during Maris's speech, diverted eyes from the archway. Assailant moved with trained silence, but overlooked the nectar vapor trails. I caught the anomaly in airflow. Recommend cross-referencing banquet staff manifests with off-palace supply logs. Maris pushes inquiry to fracture Illyra's legitimacy. This amplifies it unless we link him fast. Kale's spines bristled, exchanging glances with the adepts, dismissive at first, then probing. Human intuition? Our sensors cleared the hall thrice. Intuition trained on patterns, Elias replied evenly, tapping the hollow to overlay staff paths with intrusion vectors. Your sweeps are flawless for tech. This was behavioral. Hesitant pour from server 3, eyes too fixed on the dais. Multitasking the room's social currents with physical scans. Humans, we layer it naturally. Lyrha watched Kale absorb it, the Strategos' mandibles working as he adjusted the map, nodes lighting in confirmation. Her own mind raced. The human juggled variables her adepts siloed, connecting banquet flow to attack geometry without aid. Optimism stirred, grounded in this quiet proof. Not arrogance, but capability woven into protocol. Debate flowed. Elias held present at her gesture, interjecting only when maps tangled. Illyra advocated restraint. Kale pushed purges. Lyra steered, but Elias's suggestions sharpened the path. Prioritize subtle tales over mass arrests, preserve court cohesion. Dawn's first light pierced the briefing when a comm chime shattered the air. Security adept burst in, clutching a scanner slate. Sovereign, wine vaults breached, neurotoxin traces in the palace supply chain, routed from external rival enclaves. Cathari smugglers, Maris contacts flagged, Lyrha's claws flexed, the conspiracy's web snapping clear. Maris's ploy to poison Illyra's house, frame the alliance, ignite civil fracture. External rivals fanned it, testing her dynasty's fractures. Full sweep, she ordered, voice iron. Isolate tainted casks, trace vectors to source. And Commander Reed, your Palace Security Council appointment is immediate. Authorize your sweeps, integrate with Kale's teams. Elias met her gaze steadily, no triumph, only resolve. Understood, Sovereign. We'll layer human pattern work with your sensor grids, complementary strengths. Kale nodded, spines dipping in rare deference. Illyra's eyes shone with relief. Lyra felt the throne's weight shift, not lighter, but balanced. The human's elevation no concession but necessity forged in crisis. House Maris schemed in shadows, rivals circled, but now her inner circle held an unforeseen edge, competence unbound by tradition. Alliance proving its steel. As teams dispersed into the humming corridors, Lyrha lingered, watching Elias coordinate the first sweep. Directing adepts with patient clarity, adapting to their protocols mid-stride, while noting overlooked access vents. The Empire endured not by blood alone but by such quiet bulwarks, human resolve weaving into seraphine resolve. For the first time, contempt yielded fully to alliance, not forced, but chosen. A holographic missive flared to life in the command sanctum, its angular script pulsing like a venomous stinger. Queen Lyra's primary advisor, High Warden Vexer, recoiled mid-stride from the armory sweep reports, his iridescent scales blanching as the external empire's ultimatum scrolled, remove the human contaminant from your borders within one cycle, or face severed trade veins and probing lances at your fringes. The Krell Dominion, those hulking pragmatists from the outer rims, had chosen this moment to test her resolve, their probe drones already ghosting Seraphina patrols. Lyra's claws tightened on the sanctum's obsidian rail, her twin hearts thrumming with calculated fury. The armory secured, Saboteur remnants scattered by Elias's unerring sweeps, and now this. Contempt for the human had long dissolved in her veins, replaced by a wary regard, but the court whispered still, high houses eyeing her daughter's treaty-bound liaison as a dilution of blood purity. She turned, gaze locking on Elias Reed where he stood amid the dispersing adepts, his human frame unbowed despite the cycle's relentless grind. He met her eyes without flinching, as if sensing the storm before its gale. Your borders stir, she said, voice a silken blade, projecting the hologram for all to witness. Vexar hissed, wings half unfurling in agitation. The Krell demand your exile, Commander Reed, lest they choke our lifelines and carve at our flanks. Elias stepped forward, his movements precise, absorbing the script's alien glyphs through the translator implant with unnatural speed. No tremor in his stance, no demand for repetition. They've been massing probes for days, patterned feints to mask a real thrust. Let me speak with your border wardens. A redeployment could turn their bluff into retreat. Vexar's scales rippled in disdain. Human posturing. Our protocols demand full-spectrum lances, not your improvisations. Lyra silenced him with a raised talon, her mind racing through fleet dispositions. The Krell thrived on brute momentum, their carapaced hulls shrugging off glancing strikes, but Elias had already proven his sight-pierced veils others missed. You will negotiate, human, but under my banner. Prove this redeployment thwarts them, where the ultimatum stands. By cycle's end, Elias crouched in the border command nexus, a floating orb of tactical hollows orbiting his position. Seraphine wardens, stern figures with neural crests flickering in sync, flanked him, their reservations etched in rigid postures. Lyra observed via relay feed from the palace throne, her secondary hearts pacing as she monitored court feeds. Elias juggled 3 streams at once, parsing Krell probe telemetry, adapting Seraphine lance arrays to human-derived predictive models, and voicing calm directives in flawless trade tongue. Shift your vanguard flanks to Vector 7, Alpha, he instructed Warden Thalix, a veteran whose crest dimmed in skepticism. Their incursion feints low-mass probes to draw fire, real thrust comes high. Masked by ion wakes, redeploy scouts here. His finger traced a novel arc, linking overlooked sensor ghosts. And we'll pinch them mid-lunge. Thalix's crest flared amber, querying archives mid-conversation. No precedent for such. Asymmetry. Our rights demand balanced phalanxes. Precedent evolves, Elias replied evenly, multitasking a secondary channel to query alloy stress tolerances for a jury-rigged baffle. Your phalanxes are poetry in formation. This adds the ambush verse. Lyra watched, transfixed, as the warden's crests shifted from amber doubt to violet curiosity. Elias endured the Nexus's stifling heat without pause, his focus unfractured across domains, tactical overlays, linguistic nuances, even soothing a warden's frayed neural sync with offhand empathy. Humans, she mused, bore burdens as if they were mere cloaks. The skirmish ignited at dawn's edge. Krell probes swarmed like iron locusts, sanction's shadow looming. But Elias's redeployment sang, scouts darted through ion veils, lances snapping into the masked thrust. Carapaced hulls crumpled under pinpoint fire, the incursion shattering before it breached. Warden Thalix's relay crackled with awe, impossible precision. The humans saw patterns we charted by rote. Back in the sanctum, Lyra summoned Elias amid cheering Warden's reports. Her court assembled, Princess Illyra at her side, eyes bright with vindication. Vexar subdued, scales subdued. You have turned their venom to dust, she declared, quill poised over the engagement codex. Elias stood patient, sweat beading his brow from unrelenting cycles, yet his gaze held steady optimism. The Krell won't stop at bluffs, he said. Cooperative maneuvers, your flagships with my predictive relays, could lock the border for good. Formal propriety cracked then, her voice softening amid the intrigue. Such liberties defy protocol. High houses decry dilution of command. She signed the exception with a flourish, sealing it before witnesses. Illyra's wingtips brushed Elias's arm in quiet solidarity, a gesture bridging divides. You co-lead the joint operation, Lyra commanded, assigning him to her flagship staff, beside my adepts. Let the Empire witness this weave. The fleet mobilized under dual banners, Lyra's Seraph's fury, thundering toward the frontier. Elias integrated seamlessly, his human endurance shining as he drilled hybrid tactics through endless sim cycles, adapting Seraphine right chants to rapid-fire drills, forging bonds with staff who marveled at his unflagging pace. "He forges without fracture," murmured Adept Sira, her crest glowing as she cross-checked his patterns against ancient tomes. Lirha felt the shift in her own veins. This human's humility masked a quiet forge, tempering her forces anew. Then, amid the border clamor, catastrophe pierced the heartlands. Alarms wailed through palace relays. Saboteurs, coordinated with flawless timing, had breached the armory vaults. Explosive charges bloomed on feeds, devouring munitions caches, threatening to cripple the Queen's supply lines even as flagships engaged. Lyra surged from her throne dais, heart slamming. Counterstrike, now. Palace cohorts to the vaults, field lances peel back for support. Her gaze pierced Elias across the bridge. "You lead the van, Commander, visible, decisive. Show them alliance is our blade." He nodded without hesitation, already barking coordinates into hybrid channels, palace guards syncing with border remnants, his voice threading calm through chaos. As drop pods hurled him toward the fray, Lirha gripped the rail, watching his feed. Elias weaving through smoke-choked halls, multitasking breacher scans, guard formations, and improvised vents, spotting saboteur patterns amid the inferno that Seraphine's sensors lagged to parse. Saboteurs, masked infiltrators, likely Krell proxies, unleashed plasma arcs, but Elias anticipated, directing a pincer from overlooked ducts. Seraphine guards, emboldened by his lead, struck in unison, vaults secured amid the clash's roar. Warden feeds lit with shock. The human endures fire as water reads the unseen weave. Lyra exhaled as confirmation pinged, armory held, forces intact. Elias emerged singed but resolute, coordinating mop-up with Lyra's remote oversight. Her daughter's voice hummed through comms. "He binds us tighter than rights alone." In the sanctum's hush post-victory, Lirha met Elias's return on the bridge deck, propriety yielding to a rare clasp of forearms. Human gesture adopted without thought. "The field demands us both now," she said, voice resonant with newfound steel. Ultimatum shattered. "Let the galaxy see Queen and Envoy as one." He smiled faintly, humble exhaustion etching his features. "Together, Your Majesty. That's the redeployment that endures." Her hearts aligned, contempt's ashes scattered. The throne stood not on isolation, but this chosen forge, human ingenuity entwined with Seraphine might, propelling them toward the border's heart. Queen Lyra slammed her scepter onto the obsidian dais, the chime echoing through the vaulted chamber like a thunderclap. "The treaty binds us, High Lords. We codify the human status now, or watch our empire fracture before the border flames consume it." Her voice, honed by decades of command, cut through the hiss of indrawn breaths from the 12 counselors arrayed in their ancestral alcoves, their iridescent scales flickering under the bioluminescent orbs. Lord Virak of House Krell leaned forward, his crest flaring in defiance. "Majesty, tradition demands purity of blood for Iolira's consort. This, Elias Reed, is no Seraphine. Amending succession law for an off-worlder mocks the ancestors." Murmurs rippled, but Lyra's gaze pinned him, unyielding. Her daughter Elira stood at her right, wings half unfurled in tense support, while Elias Reed waited to her left, poised, human simple in his unadorned envoy's tunic, yet his eyes tracked every subtle shift in the room's tensions. He sees the fractures others ignore, she thought, a reluctant warmth threading her resolve. Contempt had burned away. What remained was calculation, laced with something perilously like alliance. Before she could retort, the chamber's alert runes flared crimson. "Armory breach," intoned the Sentinel AI, its voice a neutral chime. "Sabotage in the secure vault. Battle plans compromised." Chaos erupted, counselors surging to their feet, claws scraping stone. Lirha's hearts pounded once, twice. The dissidents had struck at the dynasty's core, her meticulously crafted strategies for the border war, now vulnerable. "Seal the chamber," she commanded. "Reed, go. Neutralize them." Elias didn't hesitate. He nodded once, sharp and professional, then vanished through the side archway toward the armory tunnels, his strides eating distance with effortless economy. Lyra watched his retreating form, a flicker of doubt piercing her regal mask. A human, alone against Seraphine infiltrators? but Illyra's hand brushed hers, steadying. "He will, Mother." The council devolved into shouts as Lirha activated the holographic feeds. Grainy images bloomed, the armory's shadowed vaults, racks of plasma lances humming faintly, the central plinth holding her sealed data cores. 3 saboteurs, cloaked in House Krell sigils, pried at the locks, their tools whining against quantum wards. Elias slipped in from a vent shaft, silent as mist, his body low and fluid. Lirha leaned closer, the chamber forgotten. He multitasked with predatory grace, one hand palming a stolen disruptor from a wall mount, the other signaling his wrist comm to loop the outer sensors, buying time without a sound. The lead saboteur spun at a faint scrape, but Elias was already moving, feinting left while reading the room's echoes. Vents above, pressure plates below, the faint ozone tang of active wards. He connected disparate threats in an instant, pattern recognition no rote training could match, ducking a claw swipe and countering with a precise nerve strike, dropping the first foe without lethal force. The second lunged, wings battering for dominance, but Elias adapted mid-stride, rolling under the sweep and using the Seraphine's momentum to slam it into a rack. Lances clattered. He caught one mid-fall, juggling it seamlessly while firing the disruptor at the third's tool hand. No fatigue slowed him, no complaint escaped his lips. He endured the frantic melee as if it were a morning drill, his breaths even, optimism etched in the calm set of his jaw. The feed captured it all. Saboteurs writhing, bound with their own cords, data cores secure. Elias straightened, wiping a trickle of blood from his brow, not his own, then keyed the all-clear. Gasps rippled through the council. Lord Varrock's crest wilted, his scales paling to ash-gray shock. Impossible. A single off-worlder against 3 of our elite? Competence, not impossibility, Lirha said, her tone brooking no dissent. Pride swelled unbidden as Elias re-entered the chamber, data cores in hand, presenting them with a deferential bow. Sweat gleamed on his skin, but his eyes met hers steadily, humbly. "Plans intact, Majesty." They confessed under duress. Lord Varrock's orders. The Lord recoiled, but evidence scrolled across the hollow. Intercepted comms. Krell glyphs undeniable. Lirha rose, scepter aloft. By decree of the Sovereign, Elias Reed integrates into Royal Command. He holds provisional rank as Strategos Auxiliaris, overriding clauses of blood purity for this crisis. The succession amends. Illyra's household admits him as liaison and protector. Murmurs shifted to reluctant nods. Even rivals like Lady Thorne of House Vesper dipped crests in acquiescence. Elias inclined his head. "An honor, Your Majesty. I'll serve where needed." The public investiture followed at dawn in the grand atrium, crystal spires channeling sunlight into blinding shafts. Thousands of courtiers packed the tiers, wings rustling like a storm tide. Lyra stood on the throne dais, Illyra radiant beside her, Elias a step behind, yet no longer diminished. She extended the ancestral circlet, a band of star-forged alloy, and placed it on his brow. "Elias Reed, you stand beside Princess Illyra as her affirmed consort in household and hearth. Your standing is official, etched in the annals." Cheers erupted, tentative at first, then fervent as Illyra clasped his hand, her scales brushing his skin in open affection. Lirha watched, her own claws flexing. "He forges bonds where we fracture," she mused, the formality of her posture cracking just enough for a private smile to Illyra. But Varrock's shadow lingered. As the council reconvened for the final vote on succession permanence, a dissident aide, his for Varrock, slipped a toxin vial toward the dais fence. Lirha sensed it first, the acrid shift in the air, her strategist's instincts honed by wars. She signaled subtly. Elias caught it, his pattern recognition flaring again. In a blur, he intercepted the aide mid-stride, pinning him with a hold that blended human leverage and Seraphine anatomy knowledge he'd gleaned from mere weeks among them. "The vial," Lirha demanded, retrieving it herself. Analysis confirmed. Air-slaying venom. The chamber hushed as guards restrained the wretch. Varrock, exposed as puppet master, knelt in chains. Lirha faced the council, voice resonant. "The alliance is permanent. I refuse Lord Draven's suit. His rival claim ends here." Gasps crested. Draven, the border warlord pressing for Illyra's hand. bowed stiffly from his alcove. Further, accept Elias Reed as my chosen partner in governance. Human ingenuity tempers our might. Together we secure the throne, the dynasty, the empire. The vote passed unanimously, crests bowing low. Illyra embraced Elias openly, courtiers mirroring the warmth. Lyra stepped down, clasping his forearm in the warrior's grip, formal propriety yielding to forged equality. His grip returned firm, humble eyes alight with shared purpose. She was born to rule there, realized, hearts thrumming in unity, and learned that true power is finding an equal. As the chamber emptied toward the border campaigns, their steps synchronized, seraphine grace entwined with human stride, propelling the empire not to mere survival, but triumph.